She never screamed. Not when the door slammed. Not when the bottle shattered. Not when the bruises came back again. In that small town, everyone heard something, and everyone chose silence. Until one autumn night, a man who had already turned away once in his life stood still instead of walking past, and his dog did what no one else dared to do. This is not a story about heroes. It's a story about courage and the quiet miracle that happens when someone finally says, "Enough."
Get back!
If stories like this
Stay
matter
away
to
from
you,
me!
please stay with us and consider sharing it with someone who may need hope today. Autumn pressed down on Redwood Crossing, painting the town in fading gold and rust. The air crisp and restless as leaves scraped along the pavement like whispers that refused to settle. The highway thinned as it passed through town, surrendering its urgency to a place where time moved slower and people learned to look away. Maple trees lined the street beside a low, weathered bar wedged between a gas station and an empty hardware store. Its windows glowed dimly against the early dusk. Noah Hale pulled his truck into the gravel lot and cut the engine. He sat for a moment before getting out. 38 years had shaped him into a man who rarely rushed. He was tall, solid through the shoulders, with the posture of someone trained to hold his ground without display. His dark hair was cropped short, streaked with early gray at the temples. A narrow scar split his right eyebrow, drawing the eye toward a face carved by wind, sun, and restraint. His jaw was angular, usually clenched, not in anger, but control. People often mistook Noah's silence for indifference. In truth, it was habit. Silence had kept men alive. In the back seat, Rook lifted his head. The Belgian Malinois was 6 years old, lean and powerful, his brindled coat dark along the spine and lighter at the chest. A small notch marred one ear, an old wound that never healed cleanly. His amber eyes tracked Noah's movements with practiced focus. Even at rest, Rook carried himself like a loaded spring. Noah clipped the leash to Rook's harness before opening the door. Inside, the bar smelled of stale beer, motor oil, and wet leaves carried in on boots. A few men sat hunched over the counter, shoulders rounded, voices low. The television over the bar muttered about weather further north, early frost, possible storms. Noah ordered water. He wrapped both hands around the glass when it came, feeling the chill seep into his palms. Rook settled at his feet, body relaxed, but ears angled forward. Noah noticed that. He always did. The first sound came from the back hallway. It wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. A dull, heavy impact flesh against wall, followed by the sharp crack of glass breaking. Something skittered across tile. A pause stretched afterward, thick and uncomfortable. Conversation at the bar thinned. No one turned around. Noah did. The hallway door stood partially open. Through the narrow gap, he saw a woman stumble backward. Her name was Maya Collins. She was 26, slim to the point of fragility, with dark hair hanging loose around her face as if she no longer bothered tying it back. Her skin carried a soft olive tone, dulled now by exhaustion. A fading bruise traced the curve of her cheekbone, yellowed at the edges, half hidden beneath strands of hair. She hit the wall but made no sound. Instead, she folded inward one arm, curling protectively around her abdomen, the other bracing against chipped paint. Her shoulders drew up, chin dipping, as though she were trying to make herself smaller. Not submissive, calculating, years of practice. A man stood over her. Derek Collins filled the narrow space with the careless bulk of someone accustomed to control. He was in his early 40s, thick-necked, his once strong frame softened by alcohol and anger. His flannel shirt hung crooked, stained near the cuffs. His beard grew uneven and patchy, dark with streaks of gray he refused to acknowledge. His eyes were bloodshot, unfocused, swimming in drink. Alcohol clung to him, the sourness of it heavy on his breath, embedded in the tremor of his hands. "You never learn," he muttered, voice thick, slurred at the edges. Maya didn't answer. She lowered her gaze, eyes fixed on the floor as though it could swallow her whole. Her fingers trembled when she reached for a shard of broken glass, then froze, uncertain whether cleaning would make things worse. Rook shifted, not forward, not yet, just enough to change the tension in the leash. Noah's grip tightened around his glass. He felt the weight of the moment settle into his chest, familiar and unwelcome. He had seen this posture before, the way Maya held herself, the way Derek loomed. Violence rarely announced itself with chaos. Most of the time, it lived in silence and repetition. 5 years ago, Noah had stood in a doorway like this one, watching another woman choose silence because noise had only ever brought more pain. He had followed orders then, walked away. He told himself this was different. The men at the bar stared into their drinks. One shifted on his stool. Another coughed. The bartender pretended to wipe down an already clean counter. Derek reached out, fingers closing around Maya's hair. She flinched, not away, but inward. Rook rose to his feet. The movement was quiet, controlled, but unmistakable. His muscles tightened beneath his coat, gaze locked on Derek. A low sound vibrated in his chest. Not a bark. Not yet. Derek glanced toward the noise, eyes narrowing as they landed on the dog. "What's that thing staring at?" he snapped. Noah didn't answer. He didn't move. He didn't breathe any faster. Maya lifted her eyes then, just for a moment. Dark brown, alert, afraid but not empty. When her gaze met Noah's, something flickered there. Surprise, perhaps, or disbelief. Being seen had consequences. Rook's growl deepened, controlled and deliberate. The room shifted. Several heads turned now. Someone muttered Derek's name under their breath. The bartender cleared his throat, uneasy. Derek's grip loosened. Maya pulled free, stepping back until her shoulders met the wall again. She smoothed her sweater with shaking hands, trying to erase evidence that refused to disappear. Derek spat onto the tile. "Mind your business," he muttered, though the threat had thinned in his voice. Noah said nothing. Silence stretched, taut and fragile. Then the front door opened. Cool evening air rushed in, carrying the scent of leaves and gasoline. The bell above the door chimed bright, sharp, impossibly ordinary. Rook's head snapped toward the sound. Maya flinched. Noah's fingers clenched tighter around the glass until cold bit into his skin. Morning came thin and pale to Redwood Crossing, the kind of light that revealed more than it warmed. Noah Hale woke in the cab of his truck, stiffness settling into his shoulders as soon as he moved. The engine had gone cold sometime before dawn. Outside, leaves scraped across the asphalt, pushed by a wind that smelled faintly of rain and gasoline. Rook lifted his head from the floorboard, amber eyes already alert, as if sleep had only been a suggestion. Noah stepped out and stretched, joints protesting. He had planned to leave town at first light. He told himself that again as he clipped Rook's leash in place. Plans, he had learned, were easy to make and harder to keep. Across the street, the grocery store opened early. That was where he saw her again. Maya Collins moved with quiet efficiency as she unlocked the door, keys clinking softly in her hand. In daylight, she looked younger than Noah had expected. 26, maybe, but tired in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. She was slim, shoulders narrow, posture slightly hunched, as if bracing against something invisible. Her dark hair was tied back in a loose knot, strands escaping to frame her face. The bruise on her cheek had been covered with makeup, but the swelling beneath it remained. She wore a long-sleeved shirt despite the mild weather. Rook slowed when they passed the storefront. His body angled subtly toward Maya, placing himself between her and the empty sidewalk behind her. Noah noticed. He always noticed. Inside the store, fluorescent lights hummed. Maya worked the register, fingers moving with practiced speed, eyes downcast. When she glanced up and saw Noah, her expression flickered recognition, then caution. She nodded once, polite, guarded. Noah returned the nod but didn't speak. He bought coffee he didn't want and stood aside while Rook lay at his feet, gaze tracking the door. Derek Collins arrived before noon. He came in with the smell of last night still clinging to him. Derek was broad and thick through the middle, his flannel shirt stretched tight across his chest. In daylight, the red veins around his eyes were more obvious, his beard more uneven, his skin sallow beneath a week's worth of stubble. There was a dent along his knuckle that hadn't been there before. He leaned over the counter, too close. Maya stiffened, but didn't step back. "You forget something last night?" Derek muttered. Maya shook her head. No. Her voice was calm, measured. It had learned to be. Derek snorted and reached for the pack of cigarettes behind the counter. Maya handed them over without comment. Her hands didn't shake this time. Rook stood, not abruptly, not threateningly. He simply rose and placed himself beside Noah, shoulders squared toward Derek. The dog's presence was quiet but undeniable, a physical line drawn without noise. Derek noticed. His eyes slid to Rook, then to Noah. Something unreadable passed across his face, annoyance, maybe? Or calculation. He scoffed and turned away, muttering under his breath as he left. Maya exhaled slowly once the door closed. Noah saw it. The way her shoulders dropped by a fraction, the way she leaned her weight against the counter for just a second too long. Later that afternoon, Noah learned more about the town than he wanted to know. At the diner down the road, an older woman named Ruth spoke freely while refilling his coffee. She was short and sturdy, gray hair pulled back tight, eyes sharp with the kind of awareness that came from surviving long marriages and longer winters. "Derek's always been trouble," she said quietly, glancing toward the window. "Used to be a decent mechanic. Then the layoffs came. Then the drinking. Happens fast." Noah didn't ask about Maya. He didn't need to. "She won't leave," Ruth continued. "Thinks she can fix him, or maybe she's just tired." Noah understood tired. That evening, the sound came again. Not glass this time. Just voices through thin walls as Noah walked past the Collins house on his way back to the bar. Derek's voice rose, slurred and sharp. Maya's was lower, barely audible. Rook stopped, his body angled toward the house, muscles tight beneath his coat. Noah felt the leash draw taut in his hand. He stood there longer than he meant to, listening without listening, counting breaths the way he used to when waiting for orders that never came. A crash, a muffled thud, then silence. Noah's jaw clenched. His fingers curled, then loosened. He told himself this wasn't his mission. He told himself he wasn't wearing the uniform anymore. He told himself a lot of things. Across the street, a porch light flicked on. A neighbor glanced out, then looked away. Rook let out a low, controlled sound. Not a bark, not a growl. A warning meant only for Noah. Later at the bar, Maya appeared again. She sat at the far end, nursing water with both hands. A fresh bruise darkened the edge of her jaw, poorly concealed. Noah didn't move. Rook lay at his feet, head up now, eyes never leaving Derek when he stumbled in minutes later. The dog shifted subtly, placing himself between Maya's stool and Derek's path. Maya noticed. For the first time, she looked at Rook directly. Something softened in her eyes, relief perhaps, or the strange comfort of being guarded without being owned. The bell over the door rang again. Noah tightened his grip around his glass, knuckles whitening as the night settled deeper around them. The memory came to Noah without warning, as memories like that always did. Quiet, precise, impossible to stop. It surfaced while he stood at the edge of the hardware store lot, watching Rook circle the perimeter of Derek Collins's garage across the street. Autumn light slanted low, catching dust in the air. For a moment, the present thinned, and another place pressed in. A concrete stairwell, heat rising from the ground, a woman's voice calling out in a language Noah didn't speak, carrying a child on her hip. Orders crackling through his earpiece. Hold position. Extract. Now. He had obeyed. The house burned behind him as the team pulled away. Noah closed his eyes and forced the image back where it belonged. He had been 32 then. Younger. Faster. Certain that following orders was the same as doing right. That certainty had not survived the flight home. Rook stopped moving. The Belgian Malinois lowered his head and inhaled, nostrils flaring. His posture changed, not alarmed, but intent. Noah followed the dog's gaze to the garage door, half open, shadowed inside. The smell reached Noah a second later, sharp, chemical. Underneath it, the sour sweetness of spilled liquor, not just alcohol. Rook let out a low sound from deep in his chest. Not aggression, information. Noah's jaw tightened. Derek Collins was more than a drunk. The pieces began to rearrange themselves with uncomfortable clarity. The lost job. The money problems that never seemed to end. The way Derek's anger spiked when anyone asked questions. The garage that stayed lit late into the night. Noah moved on before anyone noticed him standing there. He spent the afternoon walking the town, letting the past and present overlap in ways he didn't like. Redwood Crossing revealed itself slowly, the way small towns always did, through what people didn't say. At the edge of town lived Frank Whitlow, a retired deputy with a permanent limp and a face cut deep with lines. Frank had been shot in the leg years back during a domestic call that went bad. The department called it unfortunate. Frank called it predictable. He sat on his porch when Noah passed, cleaning a rifle that would never be fired again. "You passing through," Frank said, not a question. "Was," Noah replied. Frank studied him for a moment. He had steel gray hair, cropped close, and eyes that missed very little despite the years. His voice had softened since the shooting, but the wariness remained. "You hear things if you stay," Frank said. "Some you can't unhear." Noah nodded once and kept walking. By evening, clouds had rolled in, thick and low. The grocery store lights clicked on early. Maya worked alone behind the counter. She looked worse. The bruise along her jaw had darkened to purple, no longer pretending to fade. Her hair was pulled back tighter than usual, as if tension could be contained by force. She moved carefully, favoring one side, but her expression remained composed, too composed. Rook stayed close. Maya noticed it now, the way the dog adjusted his position when Derek's truck passed outside, the way his body aligned between threat and space without being told. "Is he always like that?" she asked quietly, eyes still on the register. Noah glanced down at Rook. "He notices patterns." Maya nodded. "I used to, too." The words landed heavier than she seemed to intend. Derek didn't come in that night. The absence felt louder than his presence. Instead, a young woman entered just before closing, barely 20, with blonde hair cut short and nervous hands that wouldn't stay still. Her name was Emily Sharp, a college dropout working nights to save money. She glanced over her shoulder twice before speaking. "You should leave," Emily whispered to Maya. "He's angry tonight." Maya's mouth tightened. "He always is." Emily hesitated, then fled, the bell over the door ringing too brightly behind her. Outside, rain began to fall. Noah walked past the Collins house again. The lights were on. Shadows moved behind thin curtains. Voices rose, then cut off abruptly. Rook stopped. Noah stopped with him. The smell was stronger now. Chemicals, alcohol, something metallic beneath it all. Noah's chest tightened, the old instinct flaring assess, plan, move. He told himself again that he was no longer a soldier, that he had left that world behind, but the world hadn't left him. Inside the house, something crashed. A sharp cry followed, cut short. Across the street, a curtain twitched. A neighbor's television volume increased. Rook looked up at Noah, amber eyes steady. This time, the memory didn't recede. This time, Noah didn't turn away. Rain arrived without drama, thin at first, then steady enough to soak through wood and bone. It was the kind of cold autumn rain that crept beneath collars and stayed, the kind that made everything smell sharper metal, wet leaves, old paint. Derek Collins came home long after dark. His truck fishtailed slightly as it turned into the driveway, headlights cutting wild arcs across the siding. When the engine died, silence rushed in, broken only by the rain tapping insistently against the roof. Derek stepped out unsteady, boots heavy, shoulders hunched, as if he were carrying the night itself. His flannel was soaked through, clinging to his frame. His beard glistened with rain and sweat, eyes glassy and unfocused. Inside, Maya heard the door slam. Her body reacted before her mind did. She rose from the couch in one smooth motion, heart already racing, palms slick. She had changed into sweatpants and a long-sleeved shirt, the fabric soft and worn thin from washing. Her hair was loose again, dark strands brushing her jaw where the bruise had deepened. She took a breath and another, counting the way she'd learned to do when panic threatened to overtake reason. Derek's footsteps crossed the living room. "You think you can run?" he slurred. Maya backed toward the kitchen, eyes scanning for exits she already knew by heart. She said nothing. Silence had always been safer than words. A crash followed, his hand striking the counter, rattling dishes. Maya flinched despite herself. When he lunged forward, she turned and ran. The back door burst open, letting rain spill into the house. Maya hit the porch at a sprint, bare feet skidding on slick wood. Her heel slipped. She went down hard, the breath driven from her chest as pain shot up her side. Behind her, Derek cursed. Across the street, Noah Hale was already moving. He had been walking Rook beneath the trees lining the road, the leash loose in his hand, rain darkening the shoulders of his jacket. When the shout cut through the night, Rook stopped short, head snapping up, ears sharp. They ran together. Maya scrambled toward the yard, hands slipping in the mud. She could hear Derek behind her now, too close, too fast. Rook reached her first. The Belgian Malinois placed himself between Maya and the house, stance wide, muscles taut beneath his soaked coat. Rain beaded along his spine. His amber eyes never left Derek. Noah stepped up beside him. Derek froze, breath coming in ragged pulls. For a moment, confusion clouded his face. Then anger flared. "This is my wife," he shouted, voice breaking. "You don't get to touch this." He reached into his jacket and pulled free a knife. The blade caught the porch light, thin and ugly. Maya gasped and curled inward on the ground, arms wrapped around herself, rain plastering her hair to her face. Noah didn't move. He stood tall, feet planted, shoulders squared without aggression. Rain ran down his face, tracing the scar through his brow. His eyes stayed on the knife, then on Derek's hands, calm, controlled, calculating distance, angle, timing. Rook growled, low and steady. Neighbors' lights flicked on, one by one. Curtains shifted. A door opened and closed somewhere down the street. Sirens came late, wailing faintly before growing louder. 2 patrol cars arrived together, splashing water across the curb. Officer Lane stepped out first, a man in his mid-30s with a square jaw and tired eyes, his uniform already damp. He moved with the practiced caution of someone who had been here before. Behind him came Officer Ramirez, younger, slimmer, hair cropped close, gaze flicking quickly between the knife and the dog. "Put it down," Lane said, voice firm but not raised. Derek hesitated, chest heaving. For a second, it looked like he might argue. Then the knife slipped from his fingers, clattering onto the wet boards. Maya sagged, relief and shock washing through her all at once. The officers separated them. Ramirez spoke quietly to Maya, offering a blanket from the trunk. She took it with shaking hands, pulling it tight around her shoulders. Her eyes stayed on the ground. Lane pulled Derek aside. Words were exchanged, muted, clipped. Derek gestured wildly, pointing at Noah, at Rook, at the house. 10 minutes later, it was over. The knife was bagged. Names were written down. Lane rubbed a hand over his face and sighed. "Sir," he said to Noah, "we're issuing a warning tonight." Maya looked up sharply. Lane didn't meet her eyes. "Domestic dispute," he continued. "No prior record filed. We can't hold him." Derek laughed under his breath. The officers left as the rain eased to a drizzle. Maya remained on the porch, wrapped in the blanket, knees drawn up to her chest. Her hands trembled, though whether from cold or realization, she couldn't tell. Noah stood a few feet away, rain dripping from his jacket, leash loose in his grip. Rook sat beside Maya, close but not touching, his body a quiet wall against the night. Maya stared out into the dark yard, breath shallow, heart pounding. If she stayed, she knew she would not survive the winter. Maya packed with the care of someone who had learned that noise invited attention. She waited until dawn thinned the night, until Derek's snoring settled into a heavy, drugged rhythm. The house smelled of stale alcohol and damp wood. Her hands moved steadily, wallet, phone, the folded envelope with her documents that she had hidden inside a cereal box weeks ago. She chose clothes that wouldn't slow her down and shoes with laces already tied. She paused only once, fingers brushing the doorframe, committing its roughness to memory. Then she left through the back. The grocery store's parking lot was nearly empty at that hour, puddles reflecting the pale sky. The building crouched behind the main road, its dumpsters lined against a chain-link fence that rattled when the wind picked up. Maya walked fast, breath shallow, eyes scanning the lot as if danger might rise from the asphalt itself. She didn't see Derek until she heard him. Maya. The sound came from behind the dumpsters, slurred and sharp at the same time. He stepped out with the unsteady confidence of a man who believed the world owed him space. His jacket hung open, rain darkened, his beard matted. In his hand, a broken bottle caught the light, the jagged edge glistening. Her body froze. Derek Collins looked older in the morning light, sagging skin around the eyes, veins threaded red through yellowed whites. His mouth twisted into something that might have been a smile once. The smell reached her a heartbeat later. Alcohol, something chemical beneath it. "You think you can just go?" he said. Maya took a step back, then another. Her heel caught on a crack in the pavement. She steadied herself without looking down. "Let me leave," she said. Her voice surprised her, steady, low. Derek laughed and lunged. Rook hit him from the side. The Belgian Malinois launched with controlled force, teeth snapping inches from Derek's forearm. The man reeled, bottle swinging wildly. Rook's paws skidded on wet pavement. Derek struck out with his free hand, catching the dog across the shoulder. Rook yelped, a short, sharp sound, and rolled away, scrambling back to his feet. His stance reset immediately, body squared again, eyes locked. "No!" Maya cried. Noah was already there. He moved without hesitation, without thought. He closed the distance in 3 long strides, rain beating along his jacket, scar cutting a hard line through his brow. He placed himself between Derek and Maya, hands open, palms visible, weight balanced on the balls of his feet. He wasn't wearing a uniform. No badge, no rank. Just a man who remembered what it felt like to fail. Derek's chest heaved. He raised the bottle, glass trembling. "You don't get to play hero," he spat. "This is my life." Noah said nothing. He watched Derek's hands, his shoulders, the way the man shifted his weight. He remembered another parking lot years ago, another blade catching the sun. He remembered the order that had come too late. Behind him, Rook growled again, deeper now, pain tucked away beneath discipline. The dog's coat was slick with rain, muscles quivering with restraint. Maya stood frozen between them, heart hammering so loud it drowned out the world. She saw the way Noah's jaw tightened, the way Derek's eyes darted, not fearless, but desperate. She realized with sudden clarity that both men were dangerous in different ways. Sirens cut through the morning, distant at first, then closer. Derek's head snapped toward the sound. He hesitated, bottle lowering by inches. Noah didn't move. The sirens grew louder, echoing off brick and metal. Tires hissed on wet pavement somewhere beyond the lot. "Drop it," Noah said quietly. Derek laughed again, wild and thin. "You think they're coming for me?" The bottle slipped from his fingers and shattered at his feet. Maya exhaled shakily, knees threatening to give way. Noah reached back without looking, fingers brushing her sleeve, a brief point of contact meant to anchor, not claim. Police lights washed the lot in red and blue. Officer Lane stepped out first, rain slicking his uniform. His expression tightened when he took in the scene-broken glass, the dog, Noah's stance. Behind him, Officer Ramirez moved slower, eyes wide, hand hovering near his radio. "What's going on?" Lane demanded. Derek raised his hands, palms out. "Nothing," he slurred. "Just a misunderstanding." Maya opened her mouth, then closed it again. Noah met Lane's gaze. He said nothing. Rook sat. The sirens died down, replaced by the steady patter of rain. Lane looked from Derek to Maya, then to Noah. His shoulders sagged. "Sir," he said to Derek, "we've talked about this." Derek nodded vigorously. "Won't happen again." Lane turned to Maya. His eyes softened for a fraction of a second. "Ma'am?" Maya swallowed. She looked at Noah, then at Rook, his amber eyes steady, waiting. "I'm leaving," she said. Lane hesitated, then nodded once. "That's probably best." Derek laughed under his breath. The officers separated them. Words were exchanged, warnings repeated. Derek was told to go home. Maya was told to take care. As the patrol cars pulled away, the rain eased. Maya stood in the middle of the lot, soaked and shaking, her bag still clutched in her hand. Noah stood a few feet away, posture easing for the first time. Rook limped slightly, but held his head high. Maya looked at the road beyond the lot, then back at the building she had worked in for years. She knew now that silence would not save her, not anymore. The rain had moved on, leaving Redwood Crossing rinsed and quiet, as if the town itself were unsure what it had just witnessed. Noah didn't sleep that night. He sat in his truck with the engine off, windows fogged, watching the weak porch light across the street burn until dawn. Rook lay curled on the passenger side floor, favoring his shoulder. The dog's breathing was steady now, pain dulled by rest, discipline holding the rest in place. A shallow cut traced along his muscle where glass had grazed him. Nothing that would last, but enough to remind Noah how close things had come. When morning broke, Noah began to document everything. He returned to the grocery store parking lot first, photographing the broken glass before the rain could wash it away. He recorded the time, the angle of the lights, the scrape marks on the pavement where Rook had skidded. His movements were methodical, practiced, not rushed, not emotional. This was how he had learned to survive chaos, by turning it into facts. Maya watched from the store doorway. She looked smaller in daylight, wrapped in a borrowed jacket that hung loose around her shoulders. Her hair was pulled back in a tight braid, exposing the bruises along her jaw and neck that she no longer bothered to hide. Her skin looked pale, drawn thin by exhaustion, but her eyes were clearer than Noah had seen them yet. "Will it matter?" she asked quietly. Noah met her gaze. "Yes." They drove together to a clinic on the edge of town, an unassuming brick building with faded signage. Inside, a woman named Karen Lowell met them in the hallway. Karen was in her early 50s, tall and composed, with silver-streaked hair cut neatly at her shoulders. She wore no uniform, just a cardigan and sensible shoes, but her presence carried weight. She spoke calmly, her voice practiced in the way that came from years of listening without judging. Karen photographed Maya's injuries carefully, asking permission before each touch. She explained every step, every form, every option. "For the record," she said gently, looking Maya in the eye, "what happened to you was not your fault." The words landed with quiet force. Maya swallowed. Her hands trembled, then stilled. No one had ever said that to her without adding conditions. Tears came then, not loud, not dramatic, just steady, honest. Noah stepped back, giving space. The next stop was federal. Noah handed over everything: photos, audio recordings, timestamps, names. He spoke to an agent named Thomas Reed, a broad-shouldered man in his 40s with close-cropped hair and eyes that missed nothing. Reed listened without interruption, his jaw tightening as the details unfolded. When Noah mentioned the chemicals, the hidden stash in Derek's garage, Reed's pen paused. "That explains a lot," Reed said. The warrant came faster than Noah expected. Derek Collins was arrested that afternoon. They found the drugs exactly where Rook had marked hidden, behind loose panels, wrapped poorly, arrogance mistaking itself for secrecy. Derek fought when they put him in cuffs. He shouted Maya's name, then Noah's, then no one's at all. His face twisted with fury and disbelief as the car door closed. The sound echoed down the street. Maya stood at a distance, arms folded tightly around herself. She watched without satisfaction, without triumph, only relief, fragile and uncertain, like something she was afraid to touch too hard. That night, she slept in a small room at a safe house an hour outside town. The bed was narrow but clean. The walls were plain. The quiet was unfamiliar. Rook lay beside the door, head on his paws, amber eyes tracking every sound. His shoulder was bandaged now, fur shaved in a neat patch. When Maya stirred, he lifted his head. When she stilled, he rested again. For the first time in years, she slept through the night. Noah stayed long enough to ensure the handoff was complete, long enough to watch Maya sign paperwork with steady hands, long enough to hear Karen explain the program: housing, counseling, time. "You don't have to decide anything today," Karen told her, "or tomorrow. Healing isn't a race." Maya nodded. She believed her. When Noah left Redwood Crossing, the trees were nearly bare. Leaves carpeted the road in dull gold and brown, crushed beneath his tires as he drove. He didn't look back. He knew better than to pretend this place would follow him. At the edge of town, he pulled over once, engine idling. Rook shifted, sensing the pause. "You did good," Noah murmured, resting a hand against the dog's neck. Rook leaned into the touch, tail thumping once against the seat. Weeks passed. Maya learned the shape of her days again. Therapy in the mornings, long walks in the afternoons, silence that no longer felt like a threat. She cut her hair shorter, the weight of it no longer something she wanted to carry. She enrolled in night classes at the community college, fingers hesitant but determined as she filled out the forms. Sometimes she thought of Noah, not as a savior, not as a debt, as someone who had stood still when it mattered, then stepped away when it was time. By the time winter threatened the hills, she was ready to stand on her own. Autumn ended quietly, not with forgiveness, not with grand declarations, just with freedom. Sometimes miracles don't arrive like lightning from the sky. They come quietly through courage, through truth, through someone who finally refuses to look away. If you're watching this and living in fear, remember this: God does not call pain love. Silence is not obedience, and survival is not your final purpose. In the middle of ordinary days, parking lots, small towns, rainy nights, God still works through people who choose compassion over comfort, through strength that protects, not controls, through freedom that asks for nothing in return. If this story touched your heart, please share it. Someone out there may need to hear that they are not alone. Leave a comment if you believe that no one deserves to suffer in silence. Subscribe to this channel if you believe stories can heal, awaken, and protect. And may God bless you. May He watch over your home, strengthen your heart, and guide you toward light when the road feels dark. You are seen, you are not forgotten, and your story is not over.